Swinging, the practice of sharing sexual partners, likely dates back to prehistoric tribal societies. Archaeologists and anthropologists suggest it was common among certain groups, arising from necessity rather than pleasure. Scarce resources made social bonds crucial for survival, and partner sharing helped form and maintain alliances between families within tribes. Early humans saw these bonds as essential for mutual support in times of need. Additionally, the practice may have promoted genetic diversity within smaller populations, enhancing resilience against diseases and environmental challenges. Studies on modern hunter-gatherer societies, which sometimes follow similar customs, support this. These social customs, though controversial by modern standards, were significant adaptive strategies for survival and cohesion in prehistoric societies. Swinging was a strategic choice, influencing tribal alliances and interactions. Archaeological sites reveal fertility ceremonies involving partner exchanges for community continuity and prosperity. Communal living with minimal emphasis on individual ownership facilitated open sexual relationships. Cave paintings and artifacts depict these practices through interconnected human figures. In exploring ancient Mesopotamia, we encounter astonishing social practices, including swinging or the sharing of sexual partners, deeply rooted in this early civilization. Mesopotamian society, flourishing from around 3500 BC to 500 BC in modern-day Iraq, had dynamics that defy modern perceptions of ancient life. Historical texts and artifacts indicate complex sexual morality, with swinging present among various classes and groups, recorded in cities like Babylon and Uruk. Mesopotamian religion played a key role in these activities, with many rituals and festivals involving public, organized sexual activities. The sacred marriage ritual, for instance, involved the king symbolically marrying a goddess, represented by a priestess, to ensure fertility and prosperity. The Code of Hammurabi, dating from 1754 BC, sheds light on sexual behavior norms, permitting certain non-monogamous relationships and reflecting societal acceptance of swinging. Religious beliefs underpinned these practices, as Mesopotamians believed sexual rites could invoke blessings from the gods. Temples often had designated sacred spaces for these activities, with priests and priestesses acting as intermediaries. Both women and men participated in these rituals, signaling a level of social acceptance. Swinging in ancient Mesopotamia mirrored social and economic dynamics. Marriages solidified political alliances or economic partnerships, and extramarital relationships lacked stigma, allowing fluid social interactions. High-status women enjoyed more autonomy and sometimes engaged in multiple relationships. Historical documents from Mari mention women having consensual sexual relations with men other than their husbands, indicating societal acceptance. Excavations have uncovered artifacts depicting group activities, suggesting communal sexual gatherings. Written records describe celebratory events where sexual activities were part of the festivities. Mesopotamian legal codes provided guidelines on sexual conduct, aiming to protect property and lineage while regulating extramarital affairs. Laws allowed temporary marriages, reflecting the practical and flexible nature of Mesopotamian society. Myths and literary texts highlighted sexual freedom and diversity in relationships, with stories of gods and goddesses including themes of multiple partnerships and divine involvement in human affairs, reinforcing cultural norms and promoting broader acceptance of varied sexual practices. The practice of swinging in ancient Mesopotamia underscores the role of freedom and choice in personal relationships. Court records and personal letters reveal that individuals had the autonomy to choose their sexual partners, often influenced by social status and personal circumstances. Records from Nippur mention cases where both men and women engaged in consensual multiple partnerships. The Epic of Gilgamesh references sexual freedom. Characters in the epic engage in multiple relationships, highlighting human desires and interactions without condemnation, portraying them as part of the natural order and divine will. Historical records and artifacts describe temple prostitution, where priestesses engaged in sexual activities as part of religious service. This was seen as a sacred duty, strengthening the community's connection to their deities. Some temples were renowned for their sexual rites and the power of their priestesses. Sexual relations in ancient Mesopotamia were a complex blend of personal choice, social obligations, and religious practices. Swinging served multiple purposes, from ensuring fertility and social alliances to fulfilling divine rituals. In ancient Greece, swinging, or sharing sexual partners, held significant cultural and religious importance. Unlike today's more secretive practices, swinging was often open and communal. Central to this was the symposium, a key social institution among the Greek elite. Symposia were gatherings where men, and sometimes women, engaged in intellectual discussions, enjoyed music, and indulged in various pleasures, including sexual activities. These events were often dedicated to Dionysus, the god of wine, revelry, and fertility. Ancient Greeks did not have the same moral reservations about sexuality that later Western societies developed. They celebrated sexual expression as a natural and positive aspect of life. For the Greeks, such activities honored their gods and ensured social cohesion. Key figures in these rituals included hetairai, educated and influential women who were more than courtesans. They played crucial roles in these gatherings, engaging in conversations and joining the festivities. Men formed deep bonds with both their wives and hetairai, often participating together. Swinging was not just recreational, but also a means of forming alliances and strengthening social networks. Aristocratic families saw these interactions as opportunities to forge political and social ties, essential for maintaining their status and influence within the Greek city-states. Philosophers like Plato and Xenophon documented these practices, reflecting their prevalence and acceptance in Greek society. Greek mythology and literature highlight the significance of swinging and sexual freedom in their society. Zeus, the king of the gods, had numerous liaisons with mortals and immortals, often depicted without moral judgment. These tales mirrored societal norms, where sexual exploits showcased virility and prowess. In Sparta, social dynamics around partner sharing differed. Spartan women enjoyed more freedom than those in other Greek city-states, encouraged to maintain physical fitness and participate in communal activities, including sexual ones, to produce strong offspring. This practice aligned with Sparta's focus on military strength. Customs like wife sharing ensured the birth of healthy children, vital for their warrior society's continuity. Conversely, Athens had a more conservative approach. Athenian men controlled their households, and women were often secluded. However, elite Athenians engaged in swinging through symposia, where ideas, wine, and bodies were freely exchanged. Despite gender divides, these practices symbolized political power and social prestige. Archaeological evidence, such as pottery and frescoes, further underscores these aspects. Artworks from the period vividly depict scenes from symposia, showcasing swinging's integration into cultural and social contexts. Swinging in ancient Greece transcended human interactions, permeating deity veneration and mythology. Festivals like the Dionysia featured grand processions, theatrical performances, and communal feasts, promoting sexual freedom to honor Dionysus. These events allowed citizens to temporarily abandon societal norms and engage in liberating activities. Corinth was renowned for its temple dedicated to Aphrodite, where sacred prostitution was practiced. Priestesses engaged in sexual acts with worshippers, enhancing both spiritual and physical well-being. Corinthian hetairai, celebrated for their beauty and intellect, were among Greece's most influential women. Swinging was intertwined with religious and cultural identity. Philosophical schools like the Epicureans advocated for pleasure as a fundamental human aim, reflecting societal acceptance of these practices. Swinging was embedded in daily life, religious practices, and social structures. It facilitated strategic alliances, fostered community bonds, and celebrated divine influences. These practices offer a unique perspective on ancient Greek society's complexity, where sexuality and social interaction were integral to their cultural heritage. Ancient Rome is remembered for its military exploits, architectural wonders, and political intrigue. It also had a rich social life, including practices considered unconventional today. One such practice was Lex Julia de Adulterius Coercendis, introduced in 18 BC by Emperor Augustus to regulate extramarital affairs. Although the law sought moral reform by penalizing adultery, it highlighted the prevalent sexual norms of the time. Swinging, the practice of sharing sexual partners, existed in Roman society. The upper classes, known for their elaborate banquets and gatherings, often engaged in swinging activities. Orgies or convivia were social events where food, drink, and physical relationships flowed freely. These activities were not limited to the aristocracy. Inscriptions from Pompeii's ruins reveal that common citizens also participated. The Roman poet Ovid, in his Ars Amatoria, offers advice on romantic and erotic pursuits, suggesting a level of normalization around these activities. Although public morality laws like Lex Julia existed, the private lives of Romans were often more permissive. Temples of fertility gods such as Priapus and statues depicting explicit scenes underscore the societal acceptance of varied sexual mores. These elements, combined with cultural exchange facilitated by Rome's vast empire, allowed for a level of sexual freedom and variety, including swinging, that is largely unrecognized today. Swinging in ancient Rome extended beyond social gatherings in private homes to religious practices. The festival of Lupercalia, held every February, exemplifies this. During Lupercalia, priests known as Luperci performed rituals to promote fertility and purify the city. Celebrations included men and women engaging in sexual activities to ensure fruitfulness for the coming year. These public displays of sexuality were socially acceptable and often encouraged by both religious and civic authorities. Roman baths were another focal point for sexual freedom. serving as hygiene centers and social hubs where people from different classes interacted. Sexual activities, including swinging, commonly occurred in these settings. Roman baths often featured various chambers for different activities, including private encounters. Literature and historical accounts provide further insight. Petronius's Satyricon describes decadent feasts and orgies involving partner swapping. The openness towards sexual practices also stemmed from the influence of other cultures within the Roman Empire. From the Greeks to the Egyptians, many civilizations embraced diverse forms of sexual expression, which were assimilated into Roman society. Swinging was widespread in ancient Rome, though not without critics. Some Roman writers and philosophers, like Cicero, voiced concerns about moral decadence, criticizing the moral decay corroding Roman society. Despite these objections, swinging persisted across all societal strata, from the elite to common citizens. Its normalization can be attributed to Rome's broader cultural and social attitudes towards sexuality. Marriage in Rome often focused on alliances and property rather than romantic love, making extramarital relationships neither uncommon nor heavily stigmatized, provided they avoided scandal. The practice permeated various aspects of life, from religious rituals to social gatherings and public baths. Literature, historical accounts, and archaeological findings depict a society with a complex and nuanced understanding of sexuality. The Middle Ages, spanning the 5th to late 15th century AD, were complex times of significant change. Sexual norms in the Middle Ages differed from today. Evidence suggests extramarital relationships were more common than often perceived. Arranged marriages were predominant among the nobility, with love and physical relationships frequently occurring outside marriage. Texts and manuscripts hint at various forms of extramarital liaisons, including wife sharing. Historical accounts mention knights and nobles sharing their wives or consorts with trusted companions, almost as a form of camaraderie. This shared intimacy was linked to loyalty and trust, though it was not widespread or openly accepted, existing more covertly. Additionally, medieval festivals and feasts often turned into wild gatherings, described in historical records and literature as opportunities for loosening societal norms, including sexual behaviors. These practices were neither consistent nor uniformly spread across Europe, varying with local customs, social status, and specific contexts. The Church often criticized these practices, advocating strict adherence to biblical teachings on marriage and fidelity. Swinging in the Middle Ages differed significantly from its modern interpretation. During this era, such practices were often more about power dynamics and alliances than personal pleasure or mutual consent. The term swinging, as we understand it today, did not apply to these historical contexts. In medieval literature, some stories hint at complex relationships and shared intimacy. The concept of courtly love involved knights expressing admiration for noblewomen who were not their wives. While often idealized and platonic, it sometimes had physical elements. Religious and cultural norms influenced perceptions of these behaviors. Communities had differing tolerances for what was acceptable. The Church condemned any sexuality outside marriage, but actual practices didn't always align with these doctrines. Local customs and festivals sometimes allowed more liberal behaviors, creating pockets of tolerance. Pilgrimages and other religious voyages presented opportunities for covert relationships and shared sexual experiences. These journeys took people far from their communities, resulting in looser social regulations. Medieval sexuality included a range of behaviors that might surprise modern audiences. The historical record shows that human relationships and sexual interactions in the Middle Ages were complex and multifaceted. The topic of swinging in the Middle Ages reveals much about the period's social and cultural contexts. Although outright swinging as understood today did not exist, a form of partner sharing linked to loyalty and alliances was present among certain groups. Chronicles and historical records provide scattered evidence of such behavior, showing that medieval life was far from monolithic. Different regions and social groups had varying practices, and the lines between acceptable and condemned behaviors were often blurred. The influence of the Church as the moral authority contrasted with the actual practices of the time. Festivals, pilgrimages, and the intricacies of courtly love all contributed to a complex tapestry of medieval sexuality, showing a society grappling with human desires within the frameworks of its time. The Middle Ages, while heavily influenced by religious doctrines, also displayed a broad spectrum of human behaviors that included covert forms of partner sharing. The practice of swinging, or consensual partner exchange between couples, has deeper historical roots than many assume. Often linked to the 1960s sexual revolution, partner swapping dates back to 18th century Europe. Intellectual circles, especially in France, began to see traditional marriage as outdated. The Enlightenment, emphasizing reason and personal freedom, led people to question conventional norms, including relationships and sexuality. Philosophers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Voltaire held unconventional views. Rousseau, for example, supported natural human instincts over strict societal norms. Though not directly advocating swinging, their questioning of traditional marital roles aligned with these emerging ideas. In the 19th century, secret societies exploring alternative sexual practices formed. Victorian England saw underground clubs for the elite, seeking escapes from rigid morality. These societies often posed as intellectual or philosophical gatherings, but were far more lascivious. Despite the era's moral strictness, these circles reveal a persistent desire for sexual expression beyond monogamy. The clandestine nature of such activities highlights both their taboo status and silent acknowledgement. The 20th century introduced significant societal changes that popularized swinging. The Roaring Twenties, marked by hedonism and breaking traditional norms, followed World War I's cultural shift towards pleasure and new entertainment. Flapper culture, jazz music, and speakeasies emerged, challenging conventional values. Swinging was part of this cultural experimentation. Couple-focused parties became more common, especially among the affluent who had the privacy and resources to engage in such practices. The sexual liberation movement of the 1960s marked a turning point for swinging, notably with the publication of books like The Joy of Sex. In the 1970s, swinging culture became more visible and organized. Couples clubs opened, providing safe spaces for exploring non-monogamous relationships. The first club opened in San Francisco in 1971, leading to a proliferation across the United States and Europe. These clubs offered social settings where couples could meet like-minded individuals away from societal judgment. Advertisements in magazines and the rise of adult bookstores further spread swinging culture. By the 1980s, swinging had developed its own subculture, with guidelines emphasizing consent and communication. The HIV/AIDS crisis of the late 1980s and early 1990s led to heightened awareness and stricter safety practices within the community. The advent of the internet in the 1990s revolutionized how swingers connected, allowing greater anonymity and access to information. Websites and online forums emerged, creating virtual communities for sharing experiences and arranging meetings. Swinging, or partner swapping, is a consensual activity where committed couples engage in sexual activities with others. The internet, social media, and dating apps have made finding like-minded individuals easier. Swinging is often linked to the sexual revolution of the 1960s and 1970s, a period marked by increased openness about sexual activities and a break from conventional norms. Today, a diverse range of couples practice swinging to broaden their sexual experiences. Studies suggest swinging couples report high levels of relationship satisfaction, attributing it to improved communication and trust. Swinging communities emphasize consent and clear boundaries, ensuring all activities are consensual and enjoyable. Social gatherings, clubs, and online forums provide platforms for swingers to meet and interact, fostering a sense of community and normalizing the practice. Despite this, swinging still faces stigma and misconceptions, often viewed as immoral by some segments of society. Proponents argue it is a consensual practice that can enhance relationships and deepen emotional bonds. The legal landscape regarding swinging varies by country, with some regions having specific laws governing sexual behavior. In many places, swinging is legal as long as it involves consenting adults. Documentaries and articles have shed light on the swinging lifestyle, offering insights and debunking myths. Swinging refers to various forms of consensual non-monogamy. Some couples prefer soft swinging, involving non-penetrative activities, while others engage in full swap swinging, which includes penetrative intercourse. Communication and mutual agreement between partners are crucial. Swinging can occur in informal settings, like private homes, or organized environments, such as swinger clubs and resorts. Technology has significantly contributed to this evolution. Websites and apps dedicated to swinging facilitate connections, experience sharing, and network building. A key aspect of swinging is the emphasis on safety and health. Swinging communities advocate for regular health checks and protective measures to prevent sexually transmitted infections. Respect for each other's boundaries and comfort levels is rigorously upheld. Many in the swinging community report that the practice positively impacts their primary relationships. By exploring desires together, couples often experience enhanced intimacy and a deeper emotional connection. The swinging lifestyle presents challenges like jealousy, emotional conflicts, and societal judgment. Effective communication is crucial to address insecurities or concerns. Swinging demands a strong foundation of trust between partners and mutual respect within the community. Guidelines and etiquette ensure everyone's comfort and consent. Many couples find swinging brings renewed adventure and excitement to their relationships. The swinging community is known for its openness and support, offering a non-judgmental space for exploring sexuality. Educational resources, workshops, and seminars help newcomers understand the lifestyle. Growing acceptance of swinging reflects wider shifts in societal attitudes towards alternative relationship structures. Swinging allows modern couples to explore and affirm their sexual autonomy. Increasing visibility and discourse suggest a trend towards embracing diverse expressions of sexuality. And that's all the time we have for swinging for now. Be sure to watch all of our documentaries as well, which should have appeared on the screen by now. There's only 2 on the screen, but you can find more from our channel page. Let us know which documentaries you want to see next in the comment section below, and be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Your one and only friend, History But Fast.